This episode of The HoneyDew is brought to you by MyBookie.com and Raycon. More on that in a little bit. Let's get into the do.
You're watching The HoneyDew with Ryan Sickler at your mom's house.
Welcome back to The HoneyDew, y'all. We're over here at Studio Jeans doing it at your mom's house. I'm Ryan Sickler. You can find me on all social media at Ryan Sickler. My website is ryansickler.com. Make sure you sign up for the email list on my website. You'll be the first to know about upcoming events, merch, all that stuff. Baltimore, September 14th, I'll be back at the famous, one night only. It is almost sold out, so get your tickets now. And as far as the HoneyDew goes, as I say every week, thank you so much for the messages, for the feedback, for the love. I sincerely appreciate it. It means as much to me as it does to you. And for any and all information, go to thehoneydewpodcast.com. Make sure you're following along on social media. All the links are there. The email is there. And please make sure you subscribe to the Your Mom's House YouTube page where you can get video every Tuesday of The HoneyDew, audio on Monday. And as I say all the time, too, the best way to help the show is to engage with our sponsors. And I can't thank you all enough. Now, if you're new to the show, what we do over here is we highlight the low lights. We try to find a little bit of that light in the darkness and then laugh at it. And I say all the time, every week, these are the stories behind the storytellers. And it is a pleasure to have my storyteller here today. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time on The HoneyDew, Pete Holmes.
First time.
Welcome to The HoneyDew, Pete Holmes.
First time.
Thank you for being here, buddy.
First time.
You look good in Under Armour, dude.
This is yours.
You look good at
This
it,
is
dude.
the King's. I call Ryan the King. And he, as the King would, put his subjects' needs ahead of his own. He gave me this hoodie because it's 69 degrees, the only funny temperature.
Oh, wow. It is
at your
69
mom's
degrees.
house. It is.
Yeah,
it's
is.
1 degree away from not being a joke.
Would you please, before we get into your stories, would you please promote anything you'd like? Let everyone know.
Well, we were joking off camera. What do you say?
Yeah, off
Say
camera.
off camera.
It's a TV show.
Say
now,
it's a
as you
TV
say.
show. Well, we were joking that it's not a podcast. It certainly is a pod. I guess you can listen to just the audio, but doing it feels like a TV show. But since it is a podcast, technically, I like to plug my podcast, which you were a guest on, which is called You Made It Weird.
I love it.
And I also have a book that's relatively new that I'm very excited about. We'll probably end up talking about some of the things that are in the book in this chat, but it's called Comedy, Sex, God.
Can I ask you a question? You hit me up after you were our guest on the live crab feast at the L.A.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
And there was something about a mission maybe you had gone on or something you were talking
Yeah,
about. And
Venezuela.
I said he walked on water. And
Yeah.
you hit me up and said, did you use that in the book?
Oh my God, I didn't. I didn't tell that story though. You know, it's funny because I
Next
grew
book.
up religious. There's so much. It's so funny the things that we think when we're starting comedy that we should keep to ourselves end up being the things that we end up divulging the most about.
I used to watch wrestling all the time as a kid, and I thought, I better shut up about that. No one's going to think that's cool.
That's
and
so
then
funny.
every fucking cool comic loves
Yeah.
wrestling.
And Kumail, who's a dear friend of mine, never talked about being from Pakistan on stage. And then his first movie, rightfully so, was about the cultural differences between he and his wife when they had met. And that's just how it goes. The thing that I sort of kept in the closet was like I didn't want to tell people that I grew up in the church, the Christian church. You shouldn't say that. It's like when people from New York say the city and they're in Texas. I'm from the city. You mean Austin? No. New York City,
Yeah,
the
New
city. I grew up in the Christian church, the non-denominational or evangelical leaning Christian church. So then like later in my life, Crashing, the TV show that I did
Yeah.
and the book and then the podcast and a little bit in my stand-up, I started talking about it more. And maybe like you with wrestling, the more I talked about it, the more I found like thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are like, not only is that my church, my faith, but that was my experience there. And that was like what it felt like. And that means a lot to me. So I wrote this book, Comedy, Sex, God, that I thought would be very niche. And it ends up that like lots and lots of people got married young, got divorced young, because that's very common in the churches that you marry your first girlfriend. And then sometimes they lose their faith. But then I think it's really important in my story, I talk about the reconstruction. I'm not going to say necessarily of a faith, but of a way of embracing and working with the mystery.
So can I talk to you a little bit about that?
Yeah.
So I grew up in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Grandmoms, her sisters, their sisters. One was a nun. Like, they were really entrenched in the Catholic Church. Rosaries, mass on Saturday, Sunday, throughout the week if they could. And then somewhere along the lines, I lost, for what I consider to be obvious reasons in the Catholic Church, I lost interest in that sort of faith.
You said we're here to laugh at the darkness. I mean, why not just, what are you talking about? Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
It's sad, man.
And you don't think anything different other than what they teach you. Like, I hadn't even thought about other religions until I got into school, and I'm like, "You're Jewish? What is that?" And then it's like, this. And I'm like, "Oh."
I had to get out of school for that because I went to Christian school.
So that's what I wanted to say. Did you ever lose faith, or did you shift belief? Because I wouldn't say I've lost faith. I've shifted belief from the teachings of the Catholic Church that you cannot masturbate, you cannot divorce,
right?
Blah blah.
Don't
blah,
masturbate
blah.
While you're getting divorced,
right? And
these are the teachings.
Raping children and things like that.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to sound too churchy, but you really can't put your faith in any system. That's what I consider myself as more of a mystically leaning person, the mystic tradition. There's such a thing as mystic Christianity, which is certainly a good feeling for me, a nice homey place for me. And that is basically, it sounds much trippier than it is, but it's all about a personal experience, something that you feel, something that happens to you.
Not necessarily praying to an entity.
And not kind of what you were saying, not earning it by going to mass and not defining yourself by a group that excludes every other group. That's all ego stuff. It's an ego trip, and the Spirit has nothing to do with your thoughts. It has nothing to do with your beliefs. I look at who I was when I was 22. That's why I have a lot of compassion for people that might be, let's say, pro-life, or even somebody that might be anti-gay marriage, which I think is fucked up. But I can have compassion for them because that was me. So
you did believe that at one time.
Yeah, because somebody told me to believe that.
Right.
Yeah, and just like somebody tells you mostly to believe everything that you believe. And that's why I believe that the mystery has so much, it has nothing to do with what you think you believe. I talk about this in the book, that your beliefs are basically just thoughts that you have and you try to have over and over and over again until they like kind of become part of you. But that's not what the game is about. I like to think that I'm not the first to use this illustration, but that your thoughts are like clouds and who you really are is the sky. So when I was a kid, I used to have the pro life cloud, and I'd have the anti-gay marriage cloud, and I'd have the all Jews and atheists and Hindus and Muslims are going to hell cloud. But now here I am, and I have all these different clouds. But what was constant throughout that? I would call that awareness, or my consciousness, or my unborn soul, basically, just like the constant thing that's going through all of that. And that has nothing to do with excluding you, judging you,
right.
Us versus them. When the ego gets a hold of spiritual ideas, it turns it into certainty worship, and it turns it into membership. It feels really good to go like, we're in the club and they're not in the club.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of things to appear holy and appear to be in. And to quote Richard Rohr, who I quote all the time, we've made a God that's like us instead of the other way around. So we've made a God that's afraid. We've made a God that's judgmental. We've made a God that's going to fuck up our enemies and protect us instead of the other way around.
The good guys, the bad guys.
Exactly, which is all binary, which is all
That's
ego,
right.
which is all thought-based, right? But the God that I see, which is this, which is everything, I don't think of God somewhere else, someplace else looking down.
I agree.
I see God and all of this as an undulating fountain of which we are an inherent and beautiful part. This God I see loves diversity. I see thousands of different varieties of flowers, but we go around trying to make our flower everybody else
Right.
turn them into us. That is not the beautiful, loving, gracious, diversity-loving thing that I see at action in the world. And it also loves the thorns and the weeds too. So I mean, like, smoke some weed on that.
I will later, I promise you.
You know what I mean? It's sort of all in the game, the struggle and the.
Well,
and the
I've
fight
always
and
had a
the
hard
doubt.
time believing that there was this, sexless, faceless, nameless, entity floating above what we consider the sky,
Yeah.
and that this, one ruler. I've always been a big believer of goddesses, and well, why not them, but this?
Yeah.
Why are they so Venus, and why are they so dismissed
I think
as fantasy but this is reality? So
Totally.
also the struggle for me back then too, because I've been baptized, communion, confirmation. So just in case the shit is real,
You're
I
in.
got the paperwork. You know what
You're
I'm
in.
saying? They'll be like, see
You've
y'all,
been to the
see y'all later.
DMV.
Yeah. But
I think
the guilt of struggling with belief also exists when you're there. And you're like, I don't know about that. And then you feel guilty for questioning what you've been taught and what you've learned at first, until you finally can break away and be like, oh no, fuck that.
Well,
Okay.
that's a huge part of the book, is that your doubt and your even your losing your faith and your anger and your hurt is all part of it. Basically, the point of the book is like, the worst thing that I thought could happen to me, which was my wife leaving me and then losing my faith, ended up being, and not just from an ego level, like circumstantial, like, and then everything went well and I got a TV show. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about inner transformation. I'm talking about something you can't see.
Right.
I'm talking about something changing and being converted inside of me,
And
not in my brain.
You work on that too. That's active work, I believe, too, just to maintain that and to thrive.
It does take upkeep.
Yeah, absolutely.
But usually when people say everything happens for a reason, they mean on an ego level. Like you got hit by a car and you lost your job, but that's how you met Tina, the nurse. That's your new wife. And it's like, fuck off. Like everybody knows that not everything works out on the ego level. But on the internal level, I do believe that things happen for a reason, but not a reason that we necessarily understand.
So at what age do you start to see your shift? What happens where you finally break away from that thinking?
Well, I was 28 when my wife left me, which is crazy.
When it started?
Yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing. Usually those events have a faith loss event when somebody's wife leaves, either they go hard into the faith, they like double down, and they go like, well, it was because she was wayward. And I'm going to because she had an affair. And then, or you go away from it. I took it as an opportunity. I wrote this in the book, I think, where I was like, I felt like God was like the mafia. And a lot of people have like a Santa Claus, and no disrespect to anybody that still thinks this way. Again, I have compassion because that's how I thought for 28 years.
Yes, I understand.
So I'll just keep it
completely.
to me. So please, no offense. I saw God as a Santa Claus. If I'm good, then he'll love me. Then he'll give me protection. He'll give me what I want. People love certain Bible verses that talk about like prosperity and, I'm not going to harm you. I'm going to give you hope and a future, is in Jeremiah. And I always used to hear people quote that, and I was like, he was talking to Jeremiah. Wasn't talking to you. You know what I mean? Like,
Jeremiah, what'd he say?
And guess what? Jeremiah's dead.
Yeah, he's
been
long
dead for thousands of
dead.
years. So we need a spirituality that's deep enough to understand that even in the mystery of life and death, you know what I like about the Catholics? Jesus on the cross, man. Deal with it. Face it.
Yeah.
Deal with this. It's scary.
Yeah.
You're supposed to look at the mystery. You're supposed to think about mortality, because we're all going around eating and fucking and buying and trying to get power, trying to get respect and all this stuff. Jesus says, don't store your treasure where moth and rust will corrupt them. So what is he talking about? I get really worked up because people, usually because I'm into spirituality, people will be like, it's just be a good person. Just be a good person. And I'm like, motherfucker, that's not what it's about. We wouldn't still be talking about it 2,000 years later if Jesus or Buddha or any of them were just like, just be decent. Don't be an asshole. That's not what they're saying. They're saying who thinks he is or isn't being an asshole isn't who it thinks it is. That it is spirit, that this is a game, that this is a dance, that this is the play of the universe, and you are not a stranger here. And that is threatening to power. Because if I'm saying I'm powerful and you're weak,
right, yeah.
and Jesus goes, it's it talking to itself.
Right.
Don't love your neighbor as yourself because it's a nice thing to do, but because it is you. That's what Jesus says. He says, when you feed the least of these, you're feeding me. I used to think he was trying to guilt me into feeding homeless people. He was saying, it's me, it's you, it's us. It's one. Don't fucking get lost in the brain of like, be a good boy and go to lots of church and belong. There's nothing wrong with going to church, and there's certainly nothing wrong with being good. Being good will move me to tears. I love when people are good. But who is being good? What is this?
Right.
What is at play here? Wake up to what Jesus was pointing us to, and it was not just be a good person. You really think a guy in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago walking around going like, hey, everybody, be good. You think that would have caught on? You think that he would have been the only person saying, just be good to everybody? You think he's the only person that said treat people nicely?
Right. Like his fucking carpenter keeps coming around telling me to be good. Just build a shed, man.
Right?
That's all we need over here, Jesus.
Who would get a chiseling because a carpenter said be good? Other people were saying be good.
Yeah.
What Jesus was saying was power is bullshit. Wealth is bullshit. Acquiring any of that stuff is nonsense.
Cars,
all
bullshit.
of it. There's that, he says, be in the world, but not of the world. So like, go ahead. I have a pretty nice car. Drive a fine, nice car, but I call it the car.
Right.
That's deliberate. I don't say my car. I say the car.
I'm the same way.
I don't say my wife. I say Val. I establish as quickly
as I can. You say
my
show?
Just because that's what people will.
I've always been the same. Anytime someone's like, "Oh, my movie," I'm like, "Wait, you're a star, dude? You're the Rock."
I like that. I just didn't want. You could find plenty of audio of me saying my show.
Yeah.
When I was on the set, I would say our show.
Right.
Absolutely. But that stuff matters. That's why you're saying like talk about goddesses and stuff. I could on one hand be like, yeah, it's all just imagery, but then on the other hand, imagery matters. Symbol systems matter. Like even though I don't identify as a Christian, Christ symbols, I say I'm Christ leaning, that stuff matters to me because it got in when I was young. So you might be that way. But I'm trying to encourage people like drop the homophobia, drop the self-hatred. That's why it's called Comedy Sex God. I had so much guilt about my sexuality. I needed to find a way to reconcile that. I also needed to find a way to reconcile the idea of God and pain. If your understanding of God just says like, well, when something bad happens, well, I guess the devil got the controls for a second. There's better metaphors. There's better stories, and they can lead to a more peaceful present life. That's the point of my book.
So, excuse me, going back to your wife being unfaithful, you met in your first wife. Your first wife.
No, I know. As if I didn't know.
You met in the church though, right?
We met at my college, which is pretty much the same.
Okay,
thing.
so in a way, and maybe I'm asking, did her infidelity help? Because she obviously broke whatever that was.
Yeah.
Did that help you in the end, in hindsight, looking back, help propel you out as well?
Okay, yeah, I started to say that, right? You're a good host. What I'm saying is I looked at God as the mafia and I was paying my protection money. The protection money was I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't swear, I didn't have sex. I secretly believed
Until how old?
I lost my virginity when I was 21.
21.
But I looked at everyone as if they were going to hell. That's the worst one, by the way. That's the worst thing God, in my understanding as a young person, asked of me, that I would meet people and be like, hi, what's your name? Oh, Ira? You're going to burn. Like that's fucked.
It is.
Like to keep that secret.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when my wife left me, even though I had done everything right, I really felt like God hadn't held up his end of the bargain. Because that's how I was taught to think of God. It was a system, pay in, get out. And then my wife leaves. So now when I look back, to answer your question, I absolutely see it as this beautiful opening where when she left, it put a crack in the facade, but the facade was fake. It was like an eggshell, put a crack in the eggshell, but there's a chick in there. There's something beautiful in there.
That's right.
And the first crack was, well, obviously God doesn't work in like if you ask and mean it really hard, like Tinkerbell. Like if we clap really hard, Tinkerbell will come back to life. That can't work. I don't mean to be too dark, but you pray on a plane that's bumpy. I had this very disturbing thought where it's like, people on planes that crashed, they were praying too. You think they weren't praying? You think that's how it works? Is God up there counting the prayers? Is he measuring the earnestness? Or something else
Or
going
rooting
on here?
for your football team.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
It's saturated.
God cares more about your team today, right now, than anything else that's going on this planet.
It's in the ballpark of superstition, and it's tribalism. It's all throughout the Old Testament. It's like our God versus your God. Fuck your God. I didn't play on the team, but my Christian college would play against other secular schools. And when they were winning,
Did y'all play Oral Roberts?
No. Would play Endicott, which was right across the way. And when they would be winning, it's actually really hilarious when I look back. They would chant, "Where's your God now?"
Nah.
Which is so funny.
They would chant, Where's your God
now? That is hilarious. I haven't thought about it till now.
That might be the best fucking sports chant I've ever
Where's
heard.
your God now? But to their point, if they had a point, so many of us think if God is with us, then we're going to win. So anyway, my wife leaving obviously felt like a loss.
Yeah.
Like I'm a loser. I remember my father being like, "Don't worry." He was very political about it. He was like, "You don't look bad, Peter. She left you. You're clean."
You're clean.
He said that,
yeah.
and I was like, Jesus Christ, what am I, running for office in Salt Lake City? But that's a very New England thing. It's like, you look okay. Like a lot of people stay together because you don't want to look
Right, a
bad.
certain way.
To that point, shout out to my ex-wife. I'm not saying this to be a sweetie. I don't give a fuck about being a fake sweetie. This is real. I admire her. If she wanted out, fucking good on you, dude. You know what I mean? I was an idiot. We can talk about, I put some of those stories on my list.
Yeah.
I was a baby boy, and I wasn't the person that I am. And I don't think I would have become the person
Boom.
I am if she had kept me in the incubation system.
You wouldn't have been.
So I don't think this is why she did it, but I actually, you know what, now that I say that, she was a good person. She is a good person, and she loved me. I bet there was part of her that was like, because you've helped me through some breakups. I've asked the king for some advice. There's always that part where it's like, if you don't want to be with them and you're just being a nice person to stay with them, you're being a bad person.
That's
to
right.
them.
You're being an enabler. Yeah.
You're being an enabler, and I'll add on that, you're being a fucking asshole because it's so scary for you, for them to know the truth. What? That you're just not feeling it. That's what my therapist says all the time. He's just like, it's just not for me. Why is that so bad?
Right.
It's not working for me.
That's as deep as sometimes it needs to go.
And it's okay.
That's right.
I'll tell this story. I've told it before, but I don't care. I was trying to break up with a girl once. It's on the list, the 10-time breakup. But I gave Ryan a list. And I had this file. I didn't remember the story though. I had a file in my iPhone. It had to be 50 items long. Because I was dating this woman, very powerful woman, good person. I don't want to shit on this person, but it wasn't for me. She frightened me, but she was very sexy, very, very adventurous and interesting and wild. And she just kind of felt somebody you wouldn't expect me to be with. And I was really enjoying the ride. And then at a certain point I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. But it took me another year.
But you were the one that stepped away.
I wanted out.
Right.
So I started making a list of why. So anytime she was mean to me, she'd like yell at me. It was verbally, could be abusive. She actually hit me in the face a couple times. Like
She loved you.
Yeah, she was intense.
Yeah.
But you know what?
I've been
Looking
there.
back, I was probably like a nightmare for her, like a non-confrontational sweetie pie who's probably playing some like weird mind games himself. So I was not faultless in this. Let's not be children. So I was doing stuff, even though it's one of my favorite lines in a Judd Apatow movie. It's in This Is 40. He goes, just because you don't yell doesn't mean you're not mean.
That's right.
And I was like, fucking A. That was hard for me to hear. So anyway, she was a little bit much. Let's just say much. So I had this list. So like, I remember one time we were making out and I leaned on her hair and her eyes went black. And she was like, how many times do I have to tell you? Do not leave alone. I was like, ah! Ah! Like it was one of the scariest. Sorry, I spit all over the desk. It was one of the scary. I still remember it.
Clearly.
Like it burned into me.
Something just happened to
She
you.
obviously, I'm a giant man. She was obviously smaller than me, but when she would yell, I would believe that she could have ripped me in half. Physically, I don't think she could have, but she just was powerful and scary to me. So I was just like, that's just not for me.
Mm-hmm.
She's a little bit, it read as cruel to me. I was like, I made a mistake. I'm in the wrong. I leaned on your hair and you like yell at me for 3 minutes. I just can't. What are you going to do if I really fuck up? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'd put that on the list. Hair lean story. Now, I had 50 fucking things on this list. I love this story. It's a great story. It stands to reason that I went to a psychic around this time. This is what people who are in pain do. When they're like looking for anyone.
Anything.
Because they don't know the king. This is the king. You talk to the king if you need help being, I don't want to say being a man, being decisive, right? You call the king. I'm not joking. Ryan is somebody that I'm like, I need help.
I love you.
Can you help me be my true self and be powerful? And I'm not hurting anybody. I'm sorry, this isn't working for me. You know what my therapist says? If they go like, you'll regret it, the only choice, this is great breakup technique. They go, you're going to regret this. Go like, maybe I will. Only concede. If anyone's watching trying to break up with somebody and you're afraid, you'll never find someone like me. Maybe you're right.
Maybe I won't. You're
going to come back in 6 months. Maybe I will. Only concede. Do not engage in an emotional debate. Only, and I found this is the 10 times breakup, you have to repeat a key phrase. I don't want to do this anymore. Just stick to like a key phrase because you're so scared and you're actually kind of being brainwashed into a thing. You're thinking differently. And then you'll have a dinner or a lunch with a friend who helps you remember yourself. So you just go in with a mantra. I don't mean like Sanskrit. I mean something that you repeat. And for me, it was, I don't want to marry you. I don't want to have kids with you. It sounds harsh, but I had to be as blunt as I could.
You have to.
Because I tried being nice. I tried 10 times breaking up nice. And on the 10th, I finally went, I don't want to marry you. I don't want to have kids with you. I'm sorry. I don't want to do this anymore. She's freaking out. I don't want to do this anymore. And finally it was over. Anyway, where was I? So I have the list. I see the psychic. Because I just want to pay a woman in a headscarf to tell me.
Off a freeway.
Yes. Just tell me. Like I wanted her to lay the cards out and just go like, you're dating the wrong person. And I'd go, it's a sign.
Yes, that's it.
That's how badly I needed. This is a spiritual issue. I'm looking for it outside. It's inside. Mm-hmm. Be quiet, Pete. Ask yourself. You don't need a woman with chunky amber jewelry to tell me to get out. But I was so unstable in myself at this time that but the psychic is looking at it and she's like, I remember she was like, this almost looks like love, but this. And she knew some really fucking crazy shit. She knew that I called her a very specific nickname. And
the psychic did?
Yeah, that's how she brought her up. Let's say the nickname was Straw Girl.
Okay.
It was that weird. And I did not post it on Facebook. There was no this was kind of before we were all doing that. So there was no online record.
Damn.
And this was over the phone. And she goes, who's Straw Girl? And I'm like, what? It was fucking crazy. So then we talk about it. And she just goes, I want you to know that there's somebody on the other side. Whether or not we believe this, who cares? It's a fun story. She goes, there's someone on the other side really pulling for you on this issue. Because I had been spending a year in torment trying to break up with this person. So that was a nice thing to get. So I keep going, though. I'm still so weak, even though I know somebody from the other side is hoping that I'll do the right thing and be honest. I still just keep adding to the list. I'm like, she called me a cunt, just adding it, which she would. It was the worst. It was a terrible thing. I don't know if she actually called me a cunt, but she would call me terrible things. So I go into therapy. This is right after the psychic told me this. And my therapist, Dr. Gary Penn, whose book is available now, said what the king would say, said what I would say as well, which is you don't need a list. What are you doing? If you don't want, you don't have to convince someone. You don't have to walk them through your argument and be like, well, there was that time I stepped on your hair. No, you can just say it's a feeling. I don't like how this feels. Maybe we'll be friends. Maybe we won't. I don't know. I just don't want to date you anymore. He just said it just isn't working. So he says, you don't need a list. I'm like, yeah, right. I don't believe him. I'm driving home. I'm stuck in some traffic. And I think of another thing, a reason for the list. To add to the list. Because I was constantly just thinking about how terrible this relationship was. So I open my phone. I hit the home button. Phone crashes. Goes to the Apple screen. I'm like, that's weird. Phone reboots. I go into my notes, which is where it was. Every note is there except that one.
Yeah.
Isn't that fucking nuts?
Yeah.
Don't you love that story?
I love that.
Whether or not it was supernatural.
Was the Hurt Linda reminder all day still in there? Was that still in the car?
All day. All day.
But that note was gone, huh?
It was gone, and it doesn't matter
How did you feel?
why.
Did you panic for a
I took
second?
it as a sign.
Okay,
I
good.
did.
Right
I took
away.
it as a sign. It felt so clearly. And this is kind of my point about religious symbols. It doesn't really matter. Literalism is a very low form of truth, unless you're building a bridge. If you're building a bridge, please be literally true.
Yeah, please.
When we're dealing with stuff as esoteric and strange as emotion and what I would call spirit and what I would call mystery, we sometimes need to get at it indirectly with things that might not be literally true, but always really happened. If that's a Richard Rohr line. Myth is always true and sometimes really happened. Similarly, did a ghost delete my note? Who cares? Probably not. Okay? If people are watching and you're just like, what nonsense? Okay, it doesn't matter. That's what it felt like. To me, it was a conversion moment where I was like, oh, I think it's time to get rid of that list. I didn't start a new list. And, I probably waited a couple months still. I was still very scared. But I finally did the right thing with people like you advising me, where it's like, you're actually being unkind. If you're dating someone, and especially if you're like very attracted to them, this is me admitting some fault. And then when you're with a friend, you're like, dude, she's really crazy or whatever. You're being an insincere piece of shit.
Yes.
I'm calling myself an insincere piece of shit.
I've been there myself.
We've all done it.
That's how you learn, unfortunately.
Dude, it was my second relationship.
Yeah.
After my marriage. So it's not like, that's not an excuse, but I didn't know what I was doing. Now when I talk to people, I'm like, the good person, if you really want to talk about being a good person, is an honest person. It's not a two-faced person that goes to dinner and like has a wild sexual night with a person and then the next day is like, they scare me. Like that, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Get out of there. She deserves to be with someone who she doesn't scare. And guess what? There is someone out there, someone more like you. I bet you could handle her. Handle her.
We'll
like
see.
She's a wild stallion. I just mean like she needed someone with more backbone, with somebody a little just, I was the wrong fit for her. So
Well,
it ends
look,
up being the gracious thing to break it up.
It is. And I mean, I have made so many mistakes. I remember, and I've said this before, meeting you for one of Larson's albums. They were doing like the little
too much
sketches.
acid.
And it was, that's a great Jay Larson.
Here's Jay off
All
stage.
these-
I'm going to go do some stand-up comedy. What's up, everybody? I'm from Boston. And he gets off stage. I think that was a really good set. I'm teasing, Jay, but you do notch it up a little bit. You go from Lexington to Mattapan pretty quick.
You could speak on that.
Maybe not Mattapan, maybe Stoneham.
But I just remember sitting, waiting my turn. I had met you and I've been a fan, but I didn't know you. And you had gone on maybe a date or two with this girl, and you just didn't know how you felt about her. You weren't crazy about her. You knew
I
that.
remember this one. Yeah,
And
that's when we met.
You said to these guys in the room, like,
Because I was going on my first date.
Yep.
This was the first girl I saw after this girl.
Yeah.
The one we were just talking
Oh,
about.
okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
And you said, should I walk her to her door after the date? I'm not really that into her. I don't know what I feel.
It was a first date. It wasn't even that I was unsure, because I'm a bit of a mushball and I'll fall fast.
Me too.
So it's more, am I going to look creepy if because I was actually saying, sorry to correct you, I just remember it
that's
so
okay.
vividly. When I pick her up, do I park and go to her door?
Right.
Or do I call her from the car?
Right. That's it.
That's
that
what
was it. It was the pickup.
And you said,
And all these guys are telling you to call and stay in the car
because
and everything.
I could never play that game, dude. I'm actually so grateful, not just to be married. That's very unromantic. I love being married to Val specifically. And one of the reasons is I was never good at the like I'd hold a girl's hand in public after like one date. It's like guys are like, I know guys that would only hold 2 cups of coffee on every date. Just so
I've never tried that
just so
move.
their hands were not available. Yeah, I like you too. Yeah.
Now I know why
Gotta
women have
pick up
2
all
drinks
these
with me.
cotton candies. I'd take it. And
you got the big stuffy at the amusement park on your shoulders and shit. Like, I just can't, man.
I'm sorry, I'm not
it.
available physically. So I needed help. I was worried that it would look creepy. And I was always quizzing guys like you, like, what is normal? And I was fascinated.
Which is different for everybody, by the way.
Just in the way that nobody knows what to do in an earthquake. You ask two people in LA what to do during an earthquake, you get two different answers. One of them's like, you want to burrow. And then another one's like, get to the sky.
The sky.
And then the same with like, do you bring a condom? That was like my number one thing, because I'm a child of the 80s and 90s really. And that was when all the AIDS scared. So all I learned, when I was learning about sex, I was learning about AIDS.
Yes.
So it was never separate. And then when you add the church in there and you add pregnancy, it's a wonder that I've ever.
So when you could get an erection.
Sex. Yeah, exactly.
For real.
No, I would buy something. I'd take some stuff. No big deal.
But I remember
Throw one of those little yellow buddies
hearing
in there.
these guys, and I'm just looking at these
for the
guys,
first couple times.
and I'm just like, look, just because you don't know how you feel about her doesn't excuse you from not being a gentleman. Just be a gentleman.
I know. And it was a beautiful thing.
And whether you like her or not, be a gentleman.
But you said that, and that's when I started calling you.
You told everybody to shut the fuck up in the room, and
Because
that's when you're like, I want to hear from the king.
All right, listen to the king, please. I remember.
But look,
that
I'm
day.
still I just had a situation with my daughter's mother where we sat. I took her to dinner, and I said I'd like to call a complete truce on everything. We get along pretty good for co-parenting, but on all of it. And I wasn't sure how she would accept it. I know I'm getting personal, but she was all for it. And she goes, do you have a plan? And I said, honestly, I don't.
You don't want to go to war with the king.
I wasn't sure.
To mobilize an army.
I wasn't sure if you'd be cool with this.
Yeah.
But the plan is whatever works for us. I don't care about what our families and friends say. I don't even care about what therapists say.
Yeah.
Whatever works for this unit right here, I'm asking that as a team.
That's how we feel about raising a baby. We're just like, what feels right to us?
We craft it ourselves on a day by day. If tomorrow that doesn't feel good, then we modify and so on and so forth. So that's the new plan. And I had something happen where I caught her in a bit of a story. And she said, I'd really want to talk. And I talked to a good friend of mine, and she said, you're going to want to go over there and you're going to want to say this and this and this and this. And that's fine, but it's not going to get you anywhere. My advice is to do the exact opposite this time of what you would ever do.
Oh, wow.
And she goes, what is the exact opposite? And I mean, we communicate for a living. The exact opposite would be, we don't need to talk.
Wow.
And I sent that. And right away, no, I really want to talk. And she goes, see how open she was to wanting to have that conversation because you didn't force your opinions, your thoughts, or the conversation.
Yeah.
And it worked well.
You didn't kingsplain.
Nope. I didn't kingsplain to anybody. I just listened.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, all good. Glad you guys are safe. That's all I need to know. And it worked.
That's nice.
So that's also a bit of reprogramming. And literally today, I had Dr. Drew sit where you sat, and after the show was over, he recommended
prescription samples.
Right there. You see them on the table. He
it's a doctor joke, not an addiction joke.
I like that you have to.
There's pens and prescription pads. There we go. There we go. We made it better. Love you, D. Drew.
He recommended this trauma therapist, and I went before I came here this morning. So all this self-work and everything, I don't ever find, for me, that it's done. I find it also ever-changing, and this is a very different type of therapy, which I'm excited to do. It's actual tangible things and different way to... She said, with talk therapy, you're just always unpacking this trunk in your head, and it's all there. But with this therapy, you can take those things, and we can start moving them around and processing different to help with whatever your anxiety, depression, addiction, whatever it is. A lot of this came from working with veterans who have PTSD, and that's the way they started developing this, which I just learned today. So, yeah, I'm back in a different type of therapy, and it's just this ever-changing, hopefully constant education that you carry with you, because it always, how old's your baby now?
I don't know.
the best. Listen, please forever say that when people ask you, because that's the one. He's 17 months. He's 14.
No, she's 10 months. She turns 10 months on the 28th.
But that's going to change when she becomes a toddler,
Yeah.
when she becomes a preteen, when she becomes a teen,
Yeah.
and it's always, and then so are you, hopefully so are you,
Right.
And you're, lending some from the past, but also learning from them, my daughter teaches me new shit. I'm like, how the fuck do you do that on the iPad? Oh, that's 3 fingers? I didn't know we could do that. She's just like this. And she's 4.
Home screen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I am as smart as a 4-year-old. No, I get that. And not to be cheesy, I look at our daughter, I look at Leela as our greatest teacher. And I've sat with a lot of mystical people, interesting, present, holy people. And hanging out with a baby is, especially if it's your baby, is better, if not, as good in that way, in that frequency increasing way. To me, like what you're saying with your daughter's mother and with your child and stuff, the answer to almost everything, in my opinion, is being present. And that doesn't just mean thinking about being present. That actually means turning your brain off a little bit.
That's right.
So when you talk about learning, what we're really doing is unlearning. And we're trying to forget some of these patterns. So it sounds like with your story that you fell into, you start enacting a script, is what a therapist would call it. And you start acting it out. And a lot of us are doing that even
you have that whole conversation, argument in your head before you get there.
Dude,
you come in with these preconceived thoughts and
I spent
it's hard
so
to
much
stop
of my
that.
life showering, rehearsing arguments that weren't even going to happen.
Right.
But that's, when I say the ego, I really mean the brain, the mind. And I believe that you are not your mind. I believe that you are the consciousness observing your mind. So when you think I am hungry, like who's talking to who? The brain is thinking I am hungry is talking to your true self, your consciousness that is sort of in charge. So that is a big stressor for me. So when we're in the moment, I don't have, like, a lot of suffering and a lot of stress comes from me defending something that doesn't even really exist.
That's right.
Like, you offend me. Something Richard Rohr, I keep quoting him, but I love him. Especially if you lean Christian, he's a Catholic, he's a Franciscan. He is a game changer. His book, Falling Upward, anything that he has on iTunes is incredible. But he talks about, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, he talks about the true self is unoffendable, which I love, especially as a comedian. When you offend me, you're offending the thought structure that I think is Pete. Take successful, right? So if an open micer is like, you ain't shit or something, I'm like, you're an open micer. I've been at this for 20 years. Like, what are you talking about? It's all here and now. It's all here and now. It's all here and now. It's just this. So in this, when you're present, I have less ego to defend. I have less bullshit to perpetuate, and I can just deal with the situation as it is, as it actually is, not as I'm projecting my past. Oh, Ryan, he's being just like my father. Fuck you, Dad.
Yes.
Like, he's not my father.
Right.
He's not.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love my dad. That was just an example.
I get it.
We're constantly projecting. Ram Dass talks about you walk through a city hungry, all you see are restaurants. We're all doing that constantly. I might look like somebody that cheated with your girlfriend and you hate me.
That's a big one. I was just about to say, I've met people in my life that I remind them of someone from their past that's not pleasant, and I'm immediately treated like shit.
This is a great example of why we shouldn't listen to your thoughts. They're wonderful tools. Like I was saying, especially if you're building a bridge, they're great. But like Eckhart Tolle says, 98% of thoughts are repetitive and useless. And I completely agree with that. And that's why spirituality, I don't care if you agree with me or not on the symbols and the metaphors that I use to explain 1% of what I think is going on here. I'm talking about a way to reduce anxiety and live more fully and presently and alive and vibrantly.
That's exactly what I'm working on.
Right now.
Yeah, right now.
Sometimes people come up and they're like, I believe exactly what you say. And I'm like, that's great. But again, I don't care how you think of it. I'm caring, how does it affect you? Can I drive home today, or can I just be talking to you today and just be here? Sometimes I'll be rocking my baby to sleep and I'm waiting for her to go to sleep. Fuck you. Richard Rohr again, he says, how you do anything, is how you do everything. So we worry about death, for example. We don't know how we're going to be when we die, but I do know how I'm going to be when I brush my teeth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if I'm brushing my teeth and I'm just like, if I can get this fucking brushing done, I can get in bed. Then I can finally get that sleep that baby Petey deserves. He's so exhausted. He works so hard. Hear all that suffering and all that story? Just feel the fucking brush on your goddamn teeth. Just brush your teeth. It's Field of Dreams. Just play catch with your son.
That's it.
That's the gift. That's the only gift you have to give
That's
anybody.
it.
And that's good stand-up, is as a present performer, really tuning into an audience. That's good sex. It's just, you don't want somebody just like using your body. You want a connection. Don't get me wrong. Some people enjoy casual sex like tennis. I understand. But that's good tennis. Be tennis.
Yeah, right.
I just didn't want to judge casual sex. I'm just saying.
Please don't.
Be in traffic. And if you're doubting, be doubt. If you're afraid of death, be afraid of death. Sit with it. Allow it. I say this all the time. I go, I am the universe afraid of death. And you know what? Your brain has no fucking idea what to do with that.
I just in therapy this morning, I was talking to my therapist and I said, I don't know if it's right, but I do know that what works for me, and I say it here, is that sometimes you need to sit in your shit.
Yeah.
And you need to feel what that's like, that fear,
It's
that
the resistance
anger.
that really
That's
makes
right.
it sticky.
Process it, understand it, then get the fuck up
Yeah.
and walk on and be present. And she told me she goes, I'm even going to I'm going to use your term, sitting in your own shit. She goes, that is exactly what you should do. And that is healthy. I've had a couple of professors email me and say that this podcast is now mandatory listening for their curriculum in their college class.
Oh, wow.
And I can't even get over that because, I know it's cheesy. We said, there you go.
I just don't want to sweat in your hoodie.
Laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah.
And
But what is laughter? You can't be not present when you're laughing.
that's right. How can you not be present when you're laughing?
That's
You're
right.
feeling it. You feel the after effects of it. My
right.
jaw hurts. My stomach hurts. My
I saw
face
in
hurts.
Comedians in Cars, Jerry was talking about in the 80s, everyone would smoke. And he was like, did it bother you? He was like, no, the laughter purifies the air.
Yeah.
And I know what he's talking
Yeah.
about. He says that like people go to Hawaii and breathe clean air. A room full of laughing people sort of is the equivalent of stepping onto a beach. I think that's not all of us. It's not working for all of us. Some of us look like burnt pork chops. But it's like, if you can let that in. But I see people do comedy at people all the time, as opposed to doing comedy with the audience.
Right.
And I've done comedy at people. It's a shitty feeling. And I've had bad sex with my wife. I'd say this if she was here. Bad meaning I'm thinking like,
I'm
okay,
somewhere else.
This not even that.
Okay.
This many thrusts here. Is she there yet? Now I'm gonna turn her and do it sideways for a while. That'll be the best way for me to get an orgasm, because then I can see this and I can see this. Like, don't think about sex. Don't think about art. Don't think about music. Don't think about a good conversation. Don't think about a good meal. And don't think about God. Stop thinking, and you'll find that all of those things are right there. Mm-hmm. It's this. I don't believe in the devil. I used to. But I believe that the brain is the liar and the thief that we were talking about. I believe that the devil is a metaphor for the thieving mind. So if you go to a museum, I write about this in Comedy Sex God. If you go to a botanical garden and think about flowers, you missed it. You can get more out of one flower in your own house. Save the admission. Sit on your front sidewalk and look at one flower. Again, Richard Rohr says, if you look at any object, it could be a can of coffee, and if you can say yes 100%, which is how you love something, you say yes to it, a rock, a tree, a flower, it will convert you, meaning it will enlighten you, meaning you'll see the preciousness of things, of all things, and your place within those things. But we go around collecting things. We go, that tree's bigger than that tree. That's what your brain does. Right. And your brain goes, I'll do this. How close am I to coming? How close is she to coming? Shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up.
Like, you are doing something. First of all, you should be having sex all the time. Have sex with this room, have sex with the air, have sex with this conversation. Always be merging. But especially when you're physically, literally having sex, that's a real opportunity to merge and blend into one thing. And that's what the whole game is coming home. I think I go, there's Val over there. Sex is a nice way to remember. What are you talking about? This is my carrying case. That's her carrying case. Let's do away with the carrying cases. And then, we sort of pornified it, but it can be beautiful.
Well, porn can be beautiful.
I mean,
so let's go back to your list a little bit because it lends itself here. Let's talk about the cruise with your parents. Can we start there?
this actually ties into porn. This is a really embarrassing story. But you said you wanted to talk about the darkness. I don't know if I probably have. I've got 400 episodes of my podcast.
I was going to say, we've
sure.
probably all told every story of our life.
But this one hurts because I think this is when my wife decided to leave me. Commercial break.
We'll be right back.
Squarespace. Blue Apron. Have you ever wanted a sprig of rosemary in a tiny bag? Like a crime scene? Who killed this souffle? Sent to you with dry ice, like Vincent Price packed it.
Vincent Price.
Do you want a dinner for one shipped to you from Timbuktu overnight for $79.50? You fucking asshole! Go to the market. Go to the market and buy a chicken. You shit. A pre-chopped carrot in a Ziploc bag, like a drug dealer sold you a carrot. Fuck you. Shit. I got to do a bit about that. That's too funny. Anyway, I'll remember. I won't remember. Will you guys write that down for me?
We'll get that for you.
That's too funny. That's how we work.
Let's take a quick break to tell you about our first sponsor, MyBookie.com. It's a new NFL season. Antonio Brown might be on the Raiders. Le'Veon Bell's with the Jets. Odell Beckham is in Cleveland. Lamar Jackson's in Baltimore. And the one thing that hasn't changed is where I'm putting my money down on all the games. MyBookie is the place to bet on football every weekend. MyBookie has better bonuses and more prop bets than any other sports book, period. This year, they're hosting the first online handicapping super contest. First place is guaranteed to win at least $100,000, and it only costs $100 to enter. All you got to do is pick 5 NFL games against the spread every week to climb the leaderboard and score your share of the huge cash prize pool. I would only recommend a service to my listeners. It's been good to me. That's why MyBookie is always the right play. You bet, you win, they pay. MyBookie has live in-game betting on every NFL game. They've got the most rewarding player perks in the business. And for you fantasy guys and girls out there, you can even bet this over-under on how many fantasy points a player will score each game. Up to $1,000 in first deposit bonus. Double your first deposit. Use promo code HoneyDew to activate the offer. Visit MyBookie online today. That's MyBookie. And don't forget to use the promo code HoneyDew when creating your account to claim the bonus. Bet, win, get paid. Our next sponsor is Raycon. Now, it's 2019. Everybody needs a great pair of wireless earbuds. But before you go dropping hundreds of dollars on a pair, you need to check out the wireless earbuds from Raycon. All right, I got a pair of them. I use them everywhere. I use them on my flights. I use them walking, jogging. I use them everywhere I go. I don't have any problems with them. You can take calls on them. Everyone can hear you fine. I don't get any noise that puts them, that makes them too quiet in my ears. And Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of any other premium wireless earbuds on the market, and they sound just as amazing. The company was actually co-founded by Ray J, and celebrities like Snoop Dogg, Cardi B, Melissa Etheridge are already obsessed. Raycon's E50 wireless earbuds, they're the ones I have totally changed the game for me. They're so comfortable and so easy to take anywhere. And unlike some of your other wireless options, Raycon earbuds are both stylish and discreet with no dangling wires or stems. And of course, they don't just look great, they sound great too. Raycon offers their wireless earbuds for everyone in a range of fun colors and at an unbeatable price. Go to buyraycon.com/honeydew to get 15% off your order. That's buyraycon.com/honeydew. BUYRACON.com/honeydew for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds. If you've been eyeing a pair, right now's the time to get an amazing deal. Once again, that's buyraycon.com/honeydew. Now let's get back to the show.
Anyway, so
where are you? Where are you going? You're on a cruise to where?
I'm probably... So I got married 22, 3, 4, 5. I moved to New York when I was 25. I got Best Week Ever when I was 26. So I was 26. I remember I had just gotten Best Week Ever. And my parents, And I have all these like boundary issues. I hope I don't make anybody uncomfortable, but there was like a thing going on. My mom and I, almost like in an Italian or a South American way, we were each other's people. You know what I mean? Very, very close.
I've seen Crashing.
Yeah. And that we turned down. Judd was like, that's too fucking weird. And I was like, I had to live it. And he was like, trust me, it's too weird.
And that's downplayed?
Well, on the show, she would sit on my lap, and on the show, I would move her off. And I was like, I didn't move her off. Why would I move her off? She's my mama. It's fucked up, man. We didn't know.
It's different.
I mean, she didn't know either. Like, neither of us, no one's malicious in this. But it was just, I always used to say she's European. she's European. We kiss on the mouth. And it never, I'm being honest, I'd tell you if it did. It never felt romantic. It was just like, of course, this is my person. And that can be lovely. I'm sure some people are like, yeah, you love your mom. I love your mom.
But that connection with your mom,
started to jeopardize my connection with other women.
I'm sure. But what about, were you, and I don't mean kissing your dad on the mouth or anything, but were you as close?
I did kiss my dad on the mouth. We were that family. And no, my dad was the working, powerful, as Joseph Campbell would call him, he was the hairy helper.
Okay.
So we wanted for nothing. I got to go on mission trips and I got to go to college without any financial aid because of my dad. Meanwhile, I'm straight up kicking it with my mom because their marriage wasn't great, and I am an empath, so I would feel her pain a lot. So my brother's method was like, I'm going to go out and sort of party and make friends. And mine was, we can't leave. There's a crime scene here. I don't mean literally a crime scene. I just mean emotionally, somebody very fragile. Yeah. I'm going to hang out. The first chapter of my book is called Indoor Cat because I was an indoor cat. I just stayed at home because it calmed my mom down. And I wanted that for her. But when you start dating, very psychologically strange. In fact, I'll go so far to say is you're supposed to sever that relationship around the age of 7 is when you're supposed to actively start being like, I have a daughter. You got to be fucking kidding me. I'm going to be head over heels in love with her. At a certain age, I believe around 7, is when you have to verbally start telling them like, I want you to like go see other people.
Go be your own person. Go see other people.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm your dad. I'm here to help, but I'm not that. I'm the model for that. I'm your psychological model for that. Just as my mom is a psychological model for a wife as well. I know that people get uncomfortable with that, but that's where we learn love, for good or bad. We learn it from watching our parents. So anyway.
That is very true.
It's fucked up. But people should be talking about fucked up shit. Like, it's fucked up, but you learn it.
That's it.
And especially if you had traumatic parents, you learn some fucked up stuff too. So you got to be, the answer is always more honesty. It's never less honesty. So I'm like, okay, that's a good thing I got from my mom. I learned that it's okay for me to be adored. Like, it's okay to be special. It's okay to shine. Like, she taught me all this very, very important stuff. So I didn't yet have any boundaries up. This is pre-therapy. This is actually why I started going to therapy.
And at 26, you said, right?
About
Around
26 years old is when I started going to my first therapist because of this cruise. The first mistake I made, which I would never do again, was I said yes. My mom and my dad, so they don't get along. My mom is basically saying, will you come on this cruise with me? I don't want to be on this cruise with just your father. Again, nothing physical or abusive, just like it won't be that fun.
Sure.
Will you come with me? I look back essentially as my date. Would you be my platonic date? I want you to come to the dinners and we'll play games and we'll go to the casino. And that, I'm sure, I can't be sure, but the feeling was that she maybe had that kind of feeling. Like, I'll bring Pete, it'll be more fun. And then my wife is basically like my plus one. This is my first wife. So the first mistake I made, I think, is going on the trip. Knowing that was the dynamic.
Right.
Knowing I had only been married for 4 years. And it was, we're still babies. And I'm like, my mom and dad want us to go on a cruise, be trapped in open water with them for days. There were sometimes just sailing days where you're just fucking sailing. So it was real bad. It was a pressure cooker of everything that was wrong that I was avoiding. Was here I am sitting between literally my mother and my wife, and psychologically I'm like having to, who are you gonna like choose? Yeah, which is fucked up and weird. And I admit that this is weird. I'm 40 now. This was 20 years ago. I'm watching this like you, as if it happened to somebody else. But my dick, as Eric Andre said, is inside my body. Right now it's gone inside. So I just remember like, it got really weird and gross. And like, I think, you know, she just saw the dysfunction there. There was nowhere to hide. And after that trip, she was like, you got to go to therapy. And it didn't even say like, or else, but it felt like an or else. It felt like an or else for me. Mm-hmm. I remember I would like act out in weird ways. I think I ordered, like I went to the adult station and turned it on just to like, I was reverting to like a 12-year-old. What would a 12-year-old do? Well, I'd hang out with his mom. And then when I'm alone in the room, I'm like, hey, porno. And my wife is like, what are you doing? Because she was a more mature person.
Right.
And she was showing how I had all this growing left to do. And then I did start seeing therapy. So again, my first wife helped in that regard. She was like, you got to go to therapy. And I did. And that's when I learned about the Oedipal complex and all that stuff, and became a better person because of it.
That's great.
Yeah, it's fucking weird.
It's deep that you could get that far now. That's a lot of work you've done.
I mean, I was 26 and I went pretty much as gross.
But you're 14 years into that now.
Yeah.
And you're able to see it. You're able to look back on it. You're able to discuss it. You're able to talk about the person you are now. I mean, a lot of people just...
The answer is always more.
No pun intended, is just keep on cruising.
Dude,
just
ignore
stay
it.
Right there.
I mean, I've seen other, you know, families similar to mine, and they're still doing it. They're 40 and they're like, I'm going to Italy with my family. And I'm like, and I know they have families like mine, and I'm like, it's so I'll tell you about me now. This is more self-serving, but it's important. I've gone to a lot of therapy. My mom doesn't sit on my lap anymore. We don't.
Did you have to tell her not to?
Straight up.
How was that? How was that conversation?
It was blunt.
Was it hurtful for your mom?
Yeah.
How was it for you, though? Were you in a place at that point? Because you'd already been in therapy.
I went to therapy. It's almost unfair. We should have gone to couples therapy. So they're there.
You probably should.
So they're there like, oh, I see. But instead, my mom just got this like boundaryful new son coming home. She sits on my lap and I go, don't sit on my lap. And she goes, why? And I go, it makes me uncomfortable.
But did it?
Yes.
Even prior to therapy? Or
yes, in a way that I didn't, my brother knew it first.
And so there was not that same at all with your brother.
He had boundaries. But he also was like sexually activated at a younger age. So you start going like, you don't want your mom sitting on your lap after you're having sex. But I had sex so late that these like tracks had been laid.
So you say.
So I started being very, very blunt with her. And almost, I don't want to say I was unkind, but I will say I could have done better. But I didn't know what else to do. I went in sort of guns blazing. Like when I said I didn't want to go to church anymore, she was like, why? And I was like, because I hate it. Like I was kind of funny about it. She was like, and I would be like, I don't want to call you every Sunday. I just want to call you when I call you. I was like, can't I just call you when I call you? And if you miss me, can't you call me? I didn't like that Pete calls on Sunday thing. Right. I know that works for some people, but it was just like infringing on my identity a little too much. That I would be on a vacation with a girlfriend and be like, it's Sunday, I got to step out and call my mom.
It's a standing date.
And then like when I would go home, it's a standing date. Mm-hmm. You're right. And when I'd go home, I would stay at home. And my mom would wake me up, as she always did, by bursting in without knocking, singing a song and climbing on, not in, but on the bed with me. And it's just like, I'm sorry, I'm not. I know you see me as an 8-year-old. I'm not. I'm 25 at this point, and I'm going to get a hotel. She's like, why not? And I still get a hotel. I was just talking to somebody about this recently. I was like, it's hard. I started to realize that the exterior world has an influence, obviously, on here. I just mean symbolically. It's like, yeah, I probably could stay at home, now and just be like, don't wake me up like that. Sure. But there's something about another area. It's metaphoric. It says like, yeah, I'm from here, but I'm going to go here and I'm going to get room service and I'm going to watch the movie that I want. I'm not going to watch it on 3, the volume 3, because you're asleep upstairs. Because I'm like, that's my therapist, like kind of really coached me into saying like, it's okay to be a grown ass man or woman. Like I would talk about that girlfriend who would yell at me and he'd just go, "You have a credit card?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You have a car?" I was like, "Yeah." "Get a hotel." He was like, "Go to the Four Seasons." This is when I started making some money from the TV show. He's like, "Pete, go to the Four Seasons. Stay in a suite for the weekend. You don't even tell her where you're going. If someone is abusing you and yelling at you and scaring you, just be like, yeah, I'm out of here. Turn your phone off and go to a hotel." That was something I needed to be told wasn't selfish or wrong or inappropriate. So that I did that with my mother, who we have a much better relationship now.
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
There's
so when
zero chance she'll see this, but I do want to say we got through that. And now
But that had to take work. I'm sure that's a huge change for your mom the moment you say, "Don't sit on my lap anymore."
Yeah. I think she thinks I'm crazy, but it doesn't matter. I don't care what she thinks.
Does she love you?
Yeah.
And you love her?
And I love her very much.
That's it.
And we have there's a lot of landmines still. And it won't, because she wants it to be, this is sad, but she wants it to be what it was. And I have to just be like, it's not going to be that anymore.
Do you?
Not in the way that it was. I say to her all the time, I go, I don't have a family, I have a situation.
Yeah.
And I go, can't you just be my mom?
Right.
Because she comes and she'll complain about my dad. And I'm like, I don't want to be your therapist. Or then she'll do this. And I go, I don't want to be your partner. I don't want to be your gossip buddy. Can't you just be my mom? Can't we hang out? We'll go get ice cream. I'm a good son. You want to go to the movies? You want to go to dinner? You want to see the baby? This, that. There's all these things available to you. But I was her confidant so much of our lives. It was me and her together. The movie Ex Machina. Do you know the movie Ex Machina?
Oh, yeah.
In the movie Ex Machina, I'm the robot.
Okay.
And she's the boy. And my dad is Oscar Isaac.
Okay.
So he's the sort of genius, and he's doing his own thing and kind of being mysterious and angry. And the boy comes to visit me in the cell, and we bond really hard, right? And I sort of use that relationship to get myself out because it wasn't a great situation. And then what sucks is the boy is left in the house. That's what's going on.
Right.
It's like you want to go like, "Mom, I wish I could set you up with some new guy," or whatever it was.
Whatever
I don't
it
even
is.
know if what it is, by the way. I think they're going to be together, and I think they want to be together. But it's like, I don't know what it is, but it can't be me because I have to be this.
Yeah.
I look at the photos and I'm
And
like,
you're
I'm
a
not this
father
anymore.
now.
And then you have a kid and you're like, my identity as, again, I don't mean to be, gender normative here, but like as a man, or just as a decisive, independent human with agency, regardless of whatever genitals you have, that it matters how I set up the parameters of
Yes.
my physical outward relationships
For you.
for me.
Yeah.
And she
Now,
gets that.
How is she as a grandmom so far? And are you worried any of that will carry over to your daughter?
No, because grandparents are supposed to spoil and love and kiss and hug and all that sort of stuff. So that'll be fine. I'm excited for them to be grandparents. She's not great with the baby. I joke that like I'll give my mom the baby and she'll just start drooping out of her arms. Like she's folded over her arm,
yeah.
like the Salvador Dali clock painting.
Yeah,
Just
melting.
Like melting. I'm like, Mom, support the butt. And I'm like, I guess it has been 40 years.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. And she'll give her the baby and she'll be talking to me and I'm like, she's sucking air. Like I can hear like, I'm like, tilt the bottle up.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll give the baby to my dad and he'll be like, "You are so beautiful." And he's crying and he's like, "All right, let's get the hell out of here." He wants one song with the baby.
Yeah, I'm out.
And then he's like, "Let's get out of here."
But this is a generation of people who smoked in the cars with kids.
Yeah.
Who didn't use seatbelts, who didn't anything. So it makes sense to me that
My dad didn't
even
wear
though
a seatbelt.
they kept us alive,
Yeah, absolutely.
they need to be reconditioned to this shit.
And you know
now.
what? To end on a positive note with my parents, I can't believe how much they've changed and grown. They've learned how to support me in show business in a way that I never dreamt possible. Because when I started, obviously being a religious person, if you're doing stand-up where you're talking about sex or drugs or swearing or whatever it might be, or just your feelings, that must be a very surreal situation for two parents. You know what I'm saying? And they've rolled with that, and they've gotten the notes. I had to tell my mom, I was like, please just tell me you like it. Like, save your other opinions for your girlfriends or whatever, but just tell me you like it. And they do. They go, that was great. Great job. And then we don't really talk about it.
Nothing deeper beyond that.
It's too hurtful. Even
Yeah.
if they try to be supportive, they're going to say something. It's just going to come out wrong. So now they've taken the note. Just say they love it. Because when I was doing the talk show, my mom would call me, and she was just joking, but it was my first foray into doing like dirtier sketches and stuff. And she'd call me and she'd be like, "Oh, I saw you in that S&M shirt." And I'm like, "Mom, like, please."
Right, yeah.
Like, I can't handle this. Like, when I'm shooting it, I can't think you're going to see it.
Right.
I need to think, how do we
My
make
mom's
it
watching.
funny?
Yeah,
So
that's ruin everything.
this is the product of a lot of therapy, and anybody out there pursuing something that maybe their parents won't understand. It's very, very helpful to me. I just say, it's not for mamas. It's not for you. And it would be weird if I did make it for you. What am I, the Great Gatsby, throwing parties hoping you show up? I'm making it for fucking stoned college kids looking for a laugh on YouTube. I'm not making it for you. And that's okay.
And you don't live your life for them.
That's right. I don't.
It's so funny sitting in the seat I'm in and the seat you're in, because I had the polar opposite relationship with my mother, abusive, abandonment, all of that. And yet I look at yours and I'm like, oh, and yet it's still a struggle on that side of things
Right.
too, when it goes too far that way.
Right.
It's pretty interesting.
I don't have anybody to relate to with my story.
I can imagine.
People are always like, they're just people. And you're like, when you turn 40, you realize your parents are just people. I'm like, they're not people. Like, I know you think they are.
Right.
But and this has happened, and I would say this if my parents were here, because they are hilarious. And there's a lot that I really, like, I'll hang out with other people's parents, and I'm like, they don't get jokes, or they get offended. Like, you can't offend my parents. They're super fun. They're super funny. And I say to them all the time, you guys are not people. And they laugh because they feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
If I took, like, if you did give me the pep talk, was like, Pete, you just got to find some common interests, go to a ball game, this, that, the other. Then you'd meet my parents and be like, I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry I ever said that.
I should have kept my mouth shut. Because some parents are just lovely, but so weird that regular rules do not apply. That being said, they are great. And they're also not people.
Can we talk a little more about, let's see, Pet F?
Pet F is in my book. I wanted to say fart camera's real short. This is a picture.
Well, that was the one I was going to say too.
Oh, you were
let's
gonna
go
say
to fart camera. No. I was going to go to that first, but I thought, let's go to fart camera first.
Okay, I'll do Pet F first, and then I'll tell you fart
right.
camera. These are both junior high stories. So in my book, the first section is about comedy, the middle section is about sex, and the third section is about God. That's why it's called Comedy, Sex, God. So the comedy obviously comes from being wounded, and I talk a little bit about some of these dynamics that we've talked about here at length, more than the book. But talking about, like, my parents arguing a lot and wanting to make peace in the house. So I developed a sense of humor and kind of honed my skills as an entertainer at the dinner table. And I was like, a drunk crowd at a club is nothing compared to my dinner table.
That's right.
And I was like, yeah, what are you going to do? Like, I don't have the same bond to them as I do my family. So that was interesting. But junior high was also what kind of forced me into comedy a little bit. I loved comedy, but there was enough sort of light bullying and feeling outside that it really made me go inside and work on my brain and become funny and have funny things to say and whatever that was, protect myself by being charming or whatever it was. And that's also what drove me to church, because in church, everybody was very, very nice. So I want to be clear. My book isn't like anti-church. I try to be positive. And one of the things that I talk about liking in church was that everybody was very, very nice. And that was really a safe haven for me. But I was trying my best to fit in. But I don't know. I was getting all my ideas from Saved by the Bell. I would wear like rayon shirts.
Yeah. Because
Zach Morris did. I had like a crucifix on a chain that I'd rock on the outside like Steve Jobs. I looked like a nun with a black turtleneck. I'd wear the cross outside the black turtleneck.
Yeah, I know that kid.
What am I doing?
I went to church with that kid.
Right?
I wore one. I tucked it in. You know.
See, you should tuck it in. That was one of the instances where my brother did step up. I had an older brother, but we weren't super close.
How much older?
He's 2 years older.
Okay.
And when I wore that, he was like, tuck it in. I was like, okay.
Listen,
Got it.
Untuck your shirt.
Yeah.
Tuck in the fucking cross.
That's right. Untuck, tuck. Tuck, untuck. So, but I loved Vanilla Ice because I wanted to be cool, and I didn't understand why he wasn't really cool. We did think he was cool. To the Extreme, great record. A lot of people love Ice Ice Baby. I love the B-sides. Anyway, I'm kidding.
I can't name one.
Me neither. So I actually just had the single on a tape. It was the same song, both sides, and Paul Abdul. Those are the two tapes that I owned. This is pre-Nirvana. Once I got to Nirvana, it changed my life.
Change your life.
But I was like, this is what's cool. And he had lines in his hair.
That's right.
So I went to my mother's hairdresser, which is my hairdresser, Maxine. And I asked her to shave something in the back of my head. And we just kind of talked about it. We're like, what should it be? And I was like, maybe just my name. And she was like, okay, I'll do Pete. So this is just like, it would be as if you asked me. She has no experience. All of our other clients are middle-aged women who want like dye jobs. And I'm like, shave something groovy. And she shaved for a while. I just heard like, for a while. I do that really well, by the way.
You do. That's solid. I thought you had a Remington in your hand, man.
The key is a little.
Yeah, the distortion.
The distortion.
I can hear the hairs going up.
That's it. It's a secret skill I have. People don't know that.
That is magic.
That is a HoneyDew. HoneyDew?
Yeah.
That is a HoneyDew exclusive. So she shaves for a while. And then she says she's done. And she turns a mirror to the back of my head and it says PET. She forgot the name-making last letter. She shaved pet into my head. And there was no room.
Like the E's over here.
You could not fix it. It just said, like I was her sex slave. And she wanted to mark me. You're mine, bitch. And it was even bad. It was all square. You know, it's just like square P-E-T. And then she was done. She thought she was done. P-E-T.
Did she hit you with a mirror and show you in the back?
Yeah. And I remember being embarrassed for her.
Yeah.
I was like, you forgot the E. And she was like, so I wish I could draw it, but imagine PET in big, huge block letters. And then like this tiny E underneath the awning of the T. Like it was like, like it started raining and the E went under the T. And it was so small. It was so small that it didn't have any definition. I know, Max. It looked like an F. So she only got 2 lines.
Pet F.
So the next day at school, everyone started calling me Pet F.
And you didn't say, fuck it, just shave it.
I should have.
You should have.
Just shave it. What was I thinking?
You tortured yourself.
Why didn't she shave it? My mom should have been like, shave it. Sitting on my lap. I think you should shave it. Thanks, Mama. Just
sitting on your lap for haircut.
Yeah, of course. What else? There's room for 2. We're both under the blanket. What's happening under that blanket?
Trying to pump you up. They're like, I don't know if we passed the weight limit on this chair here, guys.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Had to replace the hydraulics after you all up.
But that is one of the reasons I'm funny is because Pet F. But this is true. It replaced my other nickname, which was Biter Shaft.
What?
And Biter Shaft was we learned the names of the penis. Shaft was one of them. And then the next day, the kids just the fucking assholes. Eric, Matt. I'm trying to remember their names. They call me and call me. I think Zach call me Biter Shaft and Big Breastists. They'd call me Big Breastists because I had little man boobs. And so this is like, it sounds funny-ish now, but it was traumatic at the time. Oh,
yeah. And the whole time it's just building armor to get back later. Yeah.
I'll admit to, that being a motivating thing.
Look, bullying is obviously wrong. It's a horrible thing to do to somebody. But when we were kids, at least I'm older than you. I'm 46. When I was a kid, they didn't even call it bullying. It was, you learned sticks and stones. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was, who gives a shit what they say? It
And
wasn't,
I got that from my father.
you
He's
know,
like,
it
"Who
wasn't
cares?"
lean into this and
Theirs was always, they're jealous. They're jealous.
that's it.
They're jealous of you.
I'm like, they're not jealous of
I
this
know.
stupid ass
You
shirt.
should see. Look at my hands are so clammy. I can put
They're
out
not-
a candle.
Yeah, they're not jealous of Pet F.
Yeah, they're not jealous of Pet F.
It's not jealousy.
But you know what? That did sort of, again, I wish I had gotten it another way, but I did get it from that. Like,
you were armored with, well, at least
it
also,
also-
you had an inner strength for you to take that and turn it into a positive later.
And I
A
had
lot of
to-
people don't have that.
it's true. I had to look at myself. Why did I stay on the phone? They'd call me and prank me, and I'd stay on the phone. Because I thought if I like laughed or showed that I was a good sport, I was like one of them. So I sort of had to learn that lesson of like, no, hang up the phone, go to an open mic, move to New York, become a famous comedian.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it.
But it gave me no love for my, I love Boston as a place, but when I think of it, I have this trauma enough to make me comfortable to leave.
I got
Do you
it.
understand?
Mm-hmm.
That's not to put Boston down. I still like visiting. But like some people are like, I want to go back to Lexington. I'm like, no. Like that
I mean, only
would-
Paul Revere rode through once.
yeah,
You know what I'm
and he was at a good clip.
he was like, they're coming, and I'm not coming back. Goddamn.
There's something about it. It is very Peter Parker-y. Like that's where I was Peter Parker. I'm not saying I'm Spider-Man now, but to myself, my own judgment, I don't care how
You
other
are.
people feel. I'm my
Fuck
own Spider-Man.
yeah.
I'm an emotional Spider-Man. I'm a comedic Spider-Man in my own estimation. And that was the radioactive spider bite, and it hurt and it sucked. And then like it was important for me. Something else that people don't realize about Jesus is that he has no affiliations. He doesn't identify as from Galilee. He doesn't care if he's this. I mean, I know he identifies as Jewish, but that was because he was trying to reform Judaism. That was something else that spoke to me, is there needs to be like a freedom that says, I see a lot of people, especially from Boston, that are like, it's in Good Will Hunting. She's like, come to California with me. And he's like, what? Well, one, all my friends are here, and two, I live here. His second example is, I live here.
Right.
His reason for not leaving Boston
It's because he
was
lives there.
because I live here. One, I work here, and two, I fucking live here. You live here? That's a story. So the pain was enough to start kind of breaking it and go like, these are just fucking people. This isn't Boston.
Right.
This is a collection of bodies and buildings, and you're free to go anywhere. Great Jake Johansson line. He goes, I'm from Ohio until I realized we were free to go.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
everyone's free to go. That's what I'm saying. You're free to get a hotel when you go home. You're free to tell your mom to not sit on your lap. You're free to leave Boston. My parents never wanted me to leave Boston. To move to LA, as far as you can go, something inside you needs to go like, it's all just stories. The Red Sox are a bunch of people from different parts, a lot of them from the Dominican Republic.
That's
it's
right.
not a real thing. None of it is real. You are freedom itself. You can go. You can leave. You can set the parameters for your own life. I tell people, I'm like, follow whatever dream you want. Just make sure you wrote it.
That's right.
So many people are like, I want
is
to be a
right.
big fucking contractor. Was your dad a contractor? Wake up.
Yeah, right.
What do you want, Steve?
What do you want to do, Steve?
It's that great thing. It's like you'd rather be a failure at your actual dream than a success at somebody else's. That is powerful stuff. And the bullying and even some of the familial trauma was empowering to me. It made me go like, wait a minute, I'm free to go.
Yeah.
But also my mother's love. We've shed on my mother a fair amount. She also loved me so much and believes in me still so much that I was like,
You wouldn't be
this woman.
That's right.
She says I'm the stars in the
That's
sky,
right.
and I was like, "Hey, everybody!" I still go into a meeting with executives or something, and I'm glowing with the ember that my mother went. It's that. So fucking thank you, Mom.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
sorry
you,
for
Mom.
all the
Fuck
weird
yeah.
psychological trauma. We're working through it, but she got that Iron Man heart in there, along with some inappropriate lap sitting, and I'd do it all again. I'd do it all again.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind a mom lap sit.
Do you go directly to Chicago or New York first?
I went to Chicago first.
Okay.
which is not, I don't want to fall into the trap of giving people advice to do things how I did it. But I think there's something really powerful in moving to a city, if you're doing stand-up, where there is less industry.
Mm-hmm.
And in Chicago at the time, there was no industry. Industry meaning showbiz people, agents, managers, production companies, all that sort of stuff, for the most part, especially in 2001. So it's like your incubation period. Nowadays, I see a lot of comics starting, and they're like trying out their new shit at the Comedy Store. You know what I mean? Where who knows who's there,
Right?
And it's hard because you make that first impression and you're new. So I it worked for me. I think there's a million ways to do it. I always think of Bo Burnham uploading his genius when he was like 9 years old. So don't listen to me. But for me, it worked to go someplace where everyone that was doing stand-up was doing it just because they loved doing stand-up. We all thought we were going to make it. Don't get me wrong, but like we also just wanted to do some fucking stand-up.
But you said you initially were rejected by Second City.
Yeah, I moved there to do improv. I moved to an improv town.
It's so funny because I didn't know. I did improv here in LA, but I didn't know how big of an improv town Chicago was. And I didn't know people moved from out of state to do improv.
Yeah.
Like I learned that when I was like, huh?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's
okay.
why I moved to Chicago, because I heard about...
So you did improv before stand-up?
I did improv, yes. For me, I did improv in junior high at camp.
Okay.
And then I did it all through high school. And I really loved it. But I needed something stronger. It's not that I love improv. I think it can be really beautiful and very, 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 very funny.
I think it's great for personal. Yes, and is the key
It's also just good for life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, even in an
It's a good
argument
mantra.
with someone, it is.
It's a good mantra.
It is.
Mantra.
Yes, and.
Richard Rohr has a book called Yes and. It's about spirituality.
Oh, really?
And he doesn't know it's an improv thing.
It's a rule.
Yeah.
It's an actual rule.
If there's a beef that I have with a lot of some stand-ups, is that when they're riffing, they do a lot of no but.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll be like, you got this TV just in case if they don't like the podcast, they can watch a TV show. And then you go, or you put the menu up here, and it's like, no, go with mine.
That's right.
Be like, yeah, you just throw up some wrestling there, and if you're ever bored, if there's a lull, they can look at Hulk Hogan. And I'm like, that's a yes and. Like, do that. But comics are always like...
Well, I remember when I went
like
to improv,
goats.
there was a guy, they said, do not come in with preconceived notions because you're going to get fucked. You're going to think we're going one way. So I purposely did it to a guy just to stretch both of us out where, excuse me, he said, father. And I knew he wanted me to be his dad. And I said, yes, my son, the church will be, and boom.
Yeah.
He was staring at me like, oh, fuck.
Because he wanted to do...
And I was like, let's go. Now I'm your priest.
That's right.
And then,
that's why
you force people to get in that mode and then expand your mind.
My favorite improv exercise was 3-line scenes where someone would try and... I love a good initiation line, where you're saying like, you'd think there'd be more security at a museum, right? Mm-hmm. That's a great initiation. Too many improv scenes are starting with like, what's up? What's going on? And that can be really funny, don't get me wrong. But I love trying to find something where I'm giving you a gift. You'd think there'd be more security at a museum. And then they say, did we have to dress like members of the Avengers? And then I say, shut up, Iron Man. There's cameras everywhere. You know what I mean? That's a 3-line scene.
That's it.
And all it is greasing each other and yesing and anding. I would see stand-ups do improv, and you could see that not only did they have the initiation line, but they saw where they wanted it to go. And that's where the king comes in and says, guess what? I'm your priest. Bitch. That's the way to do improv. But I realized I was only as good as my team. There was always like 2 or 3 people, usually. I'm not thinking of specific people, but there's always going to be either people that aren't very good at it or people more often that aren't very committed to it. Mm-hmm. And once I found out that you could do stand-up every night or at least 3-4 times a week, it was a better way for me to mainline comedy and a relationship with an audience. So I started looking at it as improv, but my improv scene was the audience, as opposed to what Sharna Halpern says in Truth in Comedy, which is a book about improv. She says that comedians are like traveling salespeople selling jokes, which sounds very stale and stupid. I'm like, it can be as alive and vibrant and organic as improv if you're using those principles as a stand-up.
And believe me, that improv helped my stand-up so much with the yes-anding. And also, for me, the way I do stand-up, I come in with an outline of things I'd like to talk about that evening. But if something happens out here in the audience...
always drop it.
I immediately feel comfortable to go, let me put this bag down and I'm going to go over here.
Because of improv.
Because of improv. And I don't think I'd have that comfortability if I didn't take that.
Here's my impression of a beginning stand-up. So I bought a paper shredder the other day. And I was reading the manual. And a pro is like, what was that? Oh, I thought it was an earthquake. I was ready. But I grew up religious, so I'm always ready for the world to end.
Yeah.
And you just follow that train of thought.
Boom. And then you can keep coming back to this.
See, improv leans on the conceit and the truth that something that the audience knows you're making up will always be about 3 times more well received than a written thing, which you have to keep in. This is why whenever they try and televise improv or try and script something that was improvised, it doesn't work as well.
That's right.
But we can either be butthurt about that, or it can be like, as a stand-up, we can use that device and let them know that we're improvising. That's why when I do an hour, I'll take 10 minutes. I don't care if it's funny or not. I'm going to prove to you that I'm not a hologram. Like, I'm here.
We're going to have a moment.
Even if it sucks.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, in fact, it's better if it doesn't work, because I want to show you that if it doesn't work, I'm not afraid, and then you don't have to be afraid. Who cares? It didn't go anywhere. I'll get to it. Relax. It's not a real job. Don't rush me. And I like that.
But your first time you got cut?
Oh, yeah. So I auditioned at Second City. I moved there to audition for Second City. Not for Second City, for the classes.
Right.
And I got rejected.
That's the thing you have to audition for the classes.
Well, they had ABC, which was like the intro to improv, which I had taken at 2 different theaters at that point. I was doing Improv Olympic, IO in Chicago, and I had done Improv Asylum in Boston. And like I said, I had been doing it since high school, so I felt like I knew the basics. Honestly, I should have checked my ego and just checked into level A. But I was like, I'm going right for the conservatory. Right away, I'd just be like, Pete, new city. It's another thing that comedians need to learn. I went to New York. So there's a bunch of us stand-ups in Chicago, and we moved to New York, some of us at the same time. And no disrespect to these people, but a lot of them wouldn't kind of humble themselves to doing open mics again or handing out flyers like I did. They were just like, I've been doing it too long for that shit. And I don't think that's a good move. I feel like every city you go to, you're a beginning comedian again. Until you get to a certain level, you've done some TV stuff, blah, blah, blah.
But even now, like when I want to try new shit or when I'm going to run something for an album or anything, I still go do rooms that I don't tell anyone about.
Yeah.
Not that I'm embarrassed of it. I just don't promote it. And it's a smaller, intimate room. And I'm like, let me work here.
Yeah. Ego is always, Ryan Holiday has that great book called Ego is the Enemy. And I'm like, you're goddamn right it is.
Well, they say all the time in AA, ego is not your amigo.
Ego is not your amigo.
And they're like, it's cheesy. I'm like, you know what?
Dude,
it's fucking money is what it is.
Comedy wants you to humble yourself. This is why when you go into the Comedy Cellar, you have to lower your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Comedy is in a basement. It's in a small space, and you're cornered. That's how it is. It's supposed to be that way. That's why success can often be a big enemy to comedy. Any sort of feeling of privilege or like, I'm this guy. Like, on the stage, we should all be equal, and it should be like that show. And again, one of the reasons why I think that guy climbed the face of whatever, who cares? Free solo.
Yeah.
We do that because it forces us in the moment. He did that because it forces him in the moment. His brain is so overactive that when he's climbing, he's only thinking about one thing. When I'm doing stand-up, I'm only thinking about that one show. I might be 2 or 3 jokes ahead, but like I'm still
you're there, present in the moment.
And that, back to playing Catch Field of Dreams, that is the gift. People don't necessarily, they'll remember the jokes, but the vibe that you're sharing with them, that you're being there for them, I think it's the key to a good relationship. It's the key to a good friendship. It's the key to parenting, as far as I can tell.
If I could fucking take my presence, and I mean being ever present on stage, through my worst times in life, when I've been doing stand-up, 15 minutes, a half hour, an hour, when I walk off that stage, it's still a little bit before it hits me when I go, oh my God, I didn't think about anything but being right there in that room with those people. And I need to try to apply that to every aspect of my life.
Dude, that happened to me on the ride in. I go, what was I worried about? Like I started thinking about something else. I couldn't remember what I was worried about. For some fucked up reason, my brain is always going like, you know what it was? It was a guy riding his motorcycle like a piece of shit, just weaving like a maniac. I don't mean to maneuver around cars. I mean like a pirate,
Right.
like a time traveling pirate.
Like he's out of Mad Max.
Like, what is this?
Yeah.
He was probably having a great time, but he was annoying to me because I'm 40 and I have kids and I'm like, that's unsafe. And it bothered me, and that's okay, let it bother you. But like 20 minutes later, my brain was going like, what were you mad about? Like it wanted to remember because the ego wants to exist. I don't know why, but it wants to perpetuate itself. And that's why I think it's funny that people are interested sometimes in the spiritual ideas that I have to share, which are really a lot of things that were shared with me, is because I'm selling vanishing. I'm selling death, basically.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say you aren't who you think you are. But really, to get to the you're one with everything place, I have to first convince you that Ryan Sickler's a story. And it's fine. Play the game. But it's not shit. And neither is Pete Holmes. It's not shit. And that's where freedom is. But the brain keeps going, Ryan is real. Ryan is real and he deserves respect. He deserves, everyone should kiss his ass. You know, it's like, that's a dangerous game to play.
So I want you to finish with that last story.
Fart camera?
Yeah.
Well, Fart camera
Please.
will give you another glimpse into me in junior high. And I haven't told this story, I don't think. Unfortunately,
You got another HoneyDew exclusive.
This is
here
another
right now?
HDE.
So,
HDE, baby.
fucking hair clippers and the fart cam. If I don't get a Phillips Norelco sponsor or something out of this, man.
You can also do music with it. What is that?
You also, I feel like you could hit a kazoo impression out of that. Too,
Yeah.
right in that pocket. That's solid, dude. Do you know Crosstown Traffic by Hendrix?
I don't think I
They
do.
used that in the beginning, and back then he said he put cellophane over a comb,
Oh,
and that's how they blew through it on that one.
didn't use the comb. Hendrix burn.
All right.
This is just another
Yeah,
another glimpse into. I think I was funny. You know what I'm
You
saying?
definitely were
No,
funny.
I mean in junior high. I don't think it
Yeah,
was the
no.
trauma that made me funny. The trauma kept me from partying and having girlfriends and doing things on Friday night. And it was on Friday night alone when I was like watching Step by Step and thinking of how I could make it funnier. You know, it was the
Yeah.
solitude, not the teasing. The teasing sucked.
Yeah.
But those Saturdays alone, that's
Yeah.
when I wrote sketches. Like I was writing, I didn't know what they were. I was just like, what if there was a barbershop where like this guy has squid arm, you know, like, or I'd be playing with my G.I. Joes until I was 18 and I only stopped then because of social pressure. Those were movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People now pay me money. Wait, what does Flint say? He says it to Destro? Okay. I'm saying interior, G.I. Joe head. Like that's the same thing. I just didn't know it yet. So anyway, it wasn't the trauma, but this is a trauma story. I remember I was wearing like acid wash jeans and a rayon shirt, my gold cross, and I probably had 3 tasteful lines having learned from Pet F. This is 7th grade. This is around the time when my friends, Matt, who I already referenced, who was kind of a jerk to me, but I was his sidekick, what is it called? A toady? I was his toady.
Yeah.
So he'd go around. I thought like, almost like I sympathize sometimes with some Trump voters where I was like, the best play is to side with the bully. Like if this guy's throwing his weight around, just be his buddy and eventually he'll get to us. That's kind of what I did with this guy. So I made an alliance with him instead of just telling him to fuck off. And I remember we made these cameras, shoebox cameras. You know, you put a lens in it and you put some photo paper in there. And you open it like an old-timey camera and you expose the lens. I think it has to be for like 90 seconds or something. So the cool kids were taking a photo. I remember where it was. It was in front of the wall that we used to play suicide on, which is a tennis ball game, like handball. And they were like, Pete, come be in the photo. And of course, this is a really big deal for me. I was like, I'm in the photo. I'm wearing my acid wash, got my silk shirt, rayon.
Zach Morris.
I'm ready to fuck. My hair looks hard. I'm ready to go. And it's the cool girls and the cool kids. And I'm thinking Boys to Men for my pose.
Sounds like it might be the end of the road right here.
You gotta pick a hot pose, dude. And I went in
What
and
did
I
you do?
Squatted like a catcher.
Did you
I didn't
go
do
under the
this.
chin too? Or?
I probably did. Probably
That's
like
the
that.
pose for sure. Right there.
But I'm squatting like a catcher.
Yeah.
And everybody else is just kind of like, whatever. They're sitting there. And I'm right next to this girl, Julie, who's really was the beautiful, cool girl. And my crush, Emily, was in the photo and all these other kids. It's like 5 or 6 of us. And they open, I think it was Eric, opened the camera. And then he runs in. And we got to hold the pose for 90 seconds. About 15 seconds in, I realized, had a big lunch. There's a problem. There is a problem a-brewing. And this is a nightmare. It's funny now, but I am like, do not fart. And it's dead silent. And I probably made it a minute, but you still got 30 seconds to go. And this little like just squeezed out of my white acid wash jeans, and everyone dispersed. The photo doesn't exist. There is no photo.
I was hoping you say you stayed though, and it just got you.
Dude. Okay. So I farted and everyone laughed at me. What does comedy teach us? The king knows. Stay.
Stay in that mode.
That's like a Jay Larson day. Stay. And then you just have a photo of you and the ghost outlines of 7
walking
kids.
away.
That photo is framed in your living room forever. I mean, yeah. Or the really ballsy move, if I feel the fart, because it was the sound of a fart of someone holding in a fart.
Right.
So it's like a
Or just
blast
that motherfucker.
Yeah. and then stay.
Don't even move.
The fumes are in the photo. Fucking deal with it. How literally hot would that be in my pants?
I love you so much.
The Back to the Future ghosts of all the kids, partially photographed. I love you too, man. Thanks for having me. I think I might do that fart story on stage.
You need to do that fart story on stage.
And Blue Apron.
Well, do me a favor, please, one more time. Promote the book, your podcast, all of it.
Yeah, for those of you that are interested, if you liked some of the spiritual things, that's like the third part of the book. If you like the embarrassing junior high stuff, that's the first part of the book. And if you like, we didn't really get into my weird sex stories, but that's the middle part of the book.
You'll come back.
I'll come back. We'll only talk. Well, we talked a little bit about breakup theory and stuff. Hurt Linda is in the book.
Is it? Good.
Yeah, it lived on in the book from one of our podcasts with Jay. But yeah, it's called Comedy, Sex, God, and my podcast is called You Made It Weird. And a great episode to start with is The King.
I love you.
Love you too, buddy.
Thanks
for
for
having
being
me.
here.
Thanks for being who you are.
I am Ryan Sickler on all social media, ryansickler.com. We'll talk to y'all next week.